Matthew 16.
All right, we're ready to start. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Noah Williams to lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this afternoon, asking you to be with us during this meeting. Help us, give us wisdom, give us consternation, help us to do things that will be pleasing to thee and to help our fellow Georgians. Father, you know of everyone's needs here today, and we know you're the great physician. We know we have a lot of sickness in our communities as well as here in Atlanta. So we ask you to be with each of us. Bless us, lead us, and guide us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the meeting today. We have one bill on the agenda in which we're going to hear testimony, and it is a hearing only. There will be no vote taken today. We're simply trying to get information to continue down the road. Since I am presenting the bill, House Bill 109, I'm going to ask Chairman Gerald Green to chair the meeting, and I'm going to come out to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we'll recognize you for the presentation on House Bill 109.
Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, I bring today House Bill 109. It is a bill that has been in the progress of being worked on for the last 2 years. My motivation was to come up with some ideas that would help TRS be in better shape financially, and we're not here to change the retirement to anything but a defined benefit plan. And so I've appreciated hearing from most of the teachers out there. Don't appreciate some of the comments that were made, questioning my ancestry, calling me a traitor to the profession. Crazy. My mental state's none of their business. But we need constructive criticism. If after hearing my presentation and you come up to speak, I'd appreciate hearing some constructive criticism. Doing nothing is not an option. There's nothing in this bill that's in stone. We'll use what suggestions we get that we feel will better the bill. To the committee, I'd like to go through the bill and explain the changes or the things that are different in the bill that are currently in law. The first change is found on line 18. For an individual who becomes a member on or after June 1st, 2019, the average annual earnable compensation of a teacher during the 5 consecutive years of membership service producing the highest such average. Right now we go 2 years, and it makes for interesting looking around as far as you wonder how some of these folks got the big retirements. Well, they got raises in the last 2 years that they were in administration or teaching or something else to boost up their retirement. And that's a disservice to all of those who didn't get that. All right, so we felt like that the 5 years was where we needed to go. And it is fair to all. And we even have on the back, in the back section of the bill, starting on page 198, where we are limiting the number of raises you can get during that period to 2, unless there are raises that are given by the the General Assembly and not over 2.5%. So we are looking to try to make the retirement system something that will better everyone, not just really better those people that are making really high salaries. The second change comes on line 34. A cap on income. Starting on line 34, for an individual who first became a member owner after July 1st, 2019, earnable compensation shall not exceed $200,000, provided, however, that such maximum amount shall increase on July 1, 2020, and annual thereafter by an amount equal to the lesser of 3%. In other words, we're not saying that you can't get a COLA. We're just saying that the cap is at $200,000. Now, you wouldn't be surprised to know that this has been one of the big things that all teachers have agreed on, because they see the people that are getting the big retirements are those that got the big salaries out there, and it's not just in the public school system, it's in the university system. And we have people out there that are in the high six-figure retirement and or income, or their salaries are on up into seven figures, and you figure that if they taught for 30 years, what 60% of that salary would be. It has become a drain on the system. We also have a lot of people out there that are not teachers, but that work for the university system that are members of teacher retirement. I would like to change that, but that's not part of this bill. The next change is lines 51 through 53. For an individual who first became a member owner after July 1st, 2019, not less than 6 nor more than 10%. Such percentage shall be determined annually by the board and shall reflect needs of the fiscal state of the retirement system. Now, since the retirement system has been in effect, we've had two percentages, either 5 or 6. And in my teaching career, I paid both. I started off at 6. It was lowered to 5 when the retirement system, to quote somebody, was flush with money and they didn't want to feel like they were money hungry, so they lowered it to 5%. But then before I retired, they went back to 6%, and that's where it is now. So when I began teaching in 1974, my first year's salary was $7,200. I paid 6% on that salary, and the complaint that I'm getting is that people are going to be paying more for less benefit. Well, nothing is further from the truth, because you're going to get everything you put in there back. In fact, if you think about it, those of you that are retired teachers, you got every penny that you ever put into the retirement system back within about 4 years, unless you were extremely well paid. I got all mine back in 3.5 years. And then you start pulling off of other people. And that's the goodness of the whole system, is that we pooled our money. We've given it to the retirement system, and we said, invest this money for us, because we want to be able to not be a burden on society when we retire up to the point that we die. And so I felt like that. And other comments that have been made is teachers don't make any money. Well, yeah, they do. I got a lot of friends that are still teaching, and they make pretty good salaries now. But the beginning salaries are up, the top end salaries are up, and so I felt like, and retirement specialists say, you ought to save at least 10% of your money for retirement. So we took the high number of the old at 6 and went to 10. It doesn't mean that it's going to 10 right then. It's whatever the board decides it needs from employees. It makes a decision what it needs from employers. And because of that, the state in the last 3 years has put in $1.4 billion into the retirement system. I am correct on that, aren't I, Buster? Yes. So the state is doing its part. We need new teachers to do a little bit more. They're not going to lose any benefit. They're still going to get a defined benefit. Average of the 5 highest years is going to be their starting retirement money. So felt like that 6 to 10 was a good thing there. It gave the trustees some leeway there. The fourth change is found on line 111 to 113. I apologize for my sniffing. I got out in the rain and got chilled a while ago. Individuals who retire on or after July 1st, 1998, well, let's see. The credible services provided in this code, and it has to do with sick leave, accumulated sick leave going toward retirement. And it says that it will be available only to individuals who retire on or after June 1st, 1998, and shall not apply to individuals who first became members on or after July 1st, 2019. Now, in 74, I started teaching, and we got 12 and a half days. That was 10 days of sick days and 2.5 days of personal days, and you couldn't accumulate them. And so if you didn't use any one year, you lost them. But if you got real sick the next year and you went over 12 and a half days, they docked your pay. Until they came up with the idea of allowing teachers to accumulate sick days within the state or within the system. But in, I think it was 96, it was decided that we would use accumulated sick days to go toward retirement. Well, I wonder how those people that retired in 95 felt, that they didn't get to accumulate their sick days. And yeah, I retired in 2004. Yes, I used what unused sick days, but they didn't keep up with them. I got to use only those days that were after 96 when I retired in 04. So it's a perk. And I've had so many people write to me and say, it's going to hurt recruitment. Well, folks, we got a problem with recruitment right now, and it don't have anything to do with this. Everything that is in this bill won't affect recruitment, because I don't think, because what we've got now, we're trying to lure them with benefits, insurance, and we can't get young kids to go into the classroom. So something else has got to change. So that's the reason I took the sick days out. It costs the retirement system money, because nobody has put money in for those sick days. If you get a credit for a year of teacher retirement, nobody put that money in there. The state didn't. The employee didn't. So it's just a drain. The fifth change of age to retirement. For an individual, it starts on 137. For an individual who first became a member prior to July 1st, 2019, 60 years of age if the member has at least 10 years of credible service, or a change of the member, or the age of the member on the date that he or she attains 30 years of credible service. The change comes for an individual who first became a member on or after July 1st, 2019, 60 years of age if such member has at least 10 years of membership service. Why do we change this? Well, we looked around at all the other retirement systems around, and most of these states are going to, and they are mirroring Social Security. Some people can draw Social Security at 62, some at 65, and some of you won't be able to draw till you're 70. And so we were looking at what are other states doing. And actually 62 was the magic number for a lot of folks. And we dropped it to 60. And this right here is really the thing that, and I can sympathize with teachers on this. I really can. Because I know that teaching has changed some since I retired. I think it's a combination of paperwork, kids that won't behave, administrators that are non-sympathetic, a number of things. I think discipline is one of the big things. I heard it said one time that, you know, teachers, they're afraid of the principal. Principal, he's afraid of the superintendent. Superintendent's afraid of the board. And the board's afraid of the parents. Parents are afraid of the kids, and the kids ain't afraid of nobody. And that's the way it's gotten to be in a lot of classrooms. So I understand. And if somebody can come up with a better suggestion on the 60 years of age without going back to just plain 30 years, then I'll be glad to listen to you. One other thing I wanted to mention, going back to the accumulated sick days, we have several systems in the state that will pay their employees not to take those days. If they for every one they don't take, they're paid a certain amount of money. It's a job to find substitutes, but I just don't think that teachers are going to take days just to take days. I think they're better than that. I showed up for work when I was sick. I shouldn't have been there because I hated getting ready for a substitute to come in. That's one of the worst things is to have to get plans ready for a sub to come in, especially if you got more than one set of plans that you got to do. I think teachers are better than that. I don't think they're going to take days just to take days. And if systems will come up with some type of incentive on their own, I think that ends that problem right there. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, that's the bill. Those are the things that came up with trying to find some things that we could do to help teacher retirement. Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take any questions from committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any comments or questions from the committee? This is a hearing here. Okay, okay. Mr. Chairman,
if I might, to our chairman, I do have a couple of things for you, but in the interest of time and other folks that may want to speak on the bill, I'll just get with you.
I'll be glad to get with you and talk with
another
you.
time.
I'm looking for suggestions.
We've looked at this with some actuarial things involved. I would love to spread those numbers across to you as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One of the things I'd like to mention to the people in the audience and also to members of the committee that are not aware of this, we had an audit done, ERS, TRS, and the other retirement system. And the audit was done after my bill was prepared, but it's really interesting that the things that they came up with were the things that I came up with in the bill. You can go to the state auditor's website, pull that audit up and look at it and see the things that the auditor is saying that teacher retirement needs to do right now, that they don't need to kick the can on down the road any further, that it needs to be done now. And we've kicked the can for a while. When I first came up here in 2005, teacher retirement was funded at over 92%. It's at about 72% now. So, and I look around at other states. The worst one, I think, is Illinois, funded at 2%. if Illinois ever defaults on the payment to the retirement system, those people are gonna lose their retirement, just like that. So it is in the best interest of us in here and the teachers around the state to think of the whole, not of just the one. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I get on soapbox every now and then. Be glad to hear any more questions.
We do have several more questions. Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just for clarification and understanding on my part, lines 51 through 53, where we're changing the percentage from 5 to 6 to 6 to 10, it's reflected upon the needs of the state. Is there any way to kind of better define that? I mean, are we looking for a certain percentage, like if it falls below this, then we'll raise it versus
That would be up to the board to determine that.
That's up to the board?
Mhm.
Okay, so that would not be something.
I'm not trying to get into their business. I'm just, those numbers are set in code, and so we needed to change the numbers in code.
Okay, I was just curious if we're asking for more. I didn't know if there's a certain percentage they're trying to get to, and
No.
okay. And then the second part, lines 140, I guess 137 through 141. So right now, someone could have, say they start at 22 and they have 30 years, they could retire at 52.
That's correct.
But we now would say they can't do that until 60.
That's correct.
Do we know how many people that would impact? I mean, 30 years is a long time to be doing
No,
anything.
I do not, but you need to remember, this doesn't affect anybody that's teaching right now or anybody, it doesn't affect any current teacher or any current retiree. It is only new hires after 2000, after July 1 of this year.
Correct, but if there are people that are graduating now. I know, like in COB, we send out contracts for the existing employees, but we have people that are graduating now that are thinking about going to the teaching profession. They would be impacted by this, as I'm about to make my change that now I have to work 38 years, whatever that may be. So I don't know if it's, I see where you're coming from, but it might cause less heartache if I'm not a senior or somebody like that graduating. So
Okay.
we
Well,
do impact people that are thinking about accepting jobs.
If you wanna, if you would give me a suggestion as to an age and to, I'll be glad, like I said, nothing is in stone. I'll be glad to listen to you, any suggestions you have to make.
Okay, thank you, and I'll
All
reach
right.
out to folks. And
Okay.
again, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know if this is an issue that I'm
This
making
is
up.
one that,
but
this is the one that has caused the most heartache with current teachers. And they say that it's gonna hurt recruitment. Well, we're not recruiting right now. We've got people that ought to be going into teaching and are not going into teaching, and we've got the best retirement. We've got insurance. We've got all the things that we need to recruit them here, and yet we still can't get them. So the 60 was something that we looked at other states.
okay,
We don't have to go with other states, but that was the number that 62 was the number that jumped out at us the most, because that's the first year you can draw Social Security. So,
Okay.
be glad to
Thank you, Mr.
look at the
Chairman.
other things. Yes, sir.
thank you.
Oh, Representative Bentley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your work on this legislation. Can you kind of help me respond to those constituents in my district that are in opposition to this bill? Help me respond to them when they say that this proposal will be negatively impact students and county level boards of education and ultimately the state of Georgia. Can you kind of help me respond back to them?
I think the negative impact on local boards has to do with the sick leaves, because they're saying that teachers are gonna take the sick days, that they're not, but see, you can still accumulate them. What happens if you can't accumulate them and you're in a car wreck and are out for a month, or you have some type of really bad sickness and you're out for more time than what you get for what you've accumulated? I really think that teachers are better than that. I don't think that they will just take days just to take days. And actually, I think that taking a sick day and telling them you're sick and you're not, and they find out about it, can't they take action against you for saying that you are sick and you're not sick? So yes, But local systems can come up with their own incentive. We just can't afford in the retirement system to give that perk where a teacher retires and he or she has enough days to give them 2 more years on the retirement system. Boom, boom, they're up 2 steps already. I mean, it's just like that. They get credit for 2 years. Nobody has put any money in for that. They didn't. The employee didn't. The employer didn't. And that money's just going with and that money's just gone. Mm-hmm. And it's gone every year as long as they're part of the retirement system.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I fit?
Certainly.
Another thing is you might emphasize to the people that are opposed to this, and they're either current teachers or retired teachers, and they're looking at what they have, and they want the people that come after them to get the exact same thing. But when they retired, they got something different than the people that were before them. And so I think that's not the logical way to look at it. We had people that worked for pennies all their lives and never made much money, but they're still getting retirement checks. They're up in their 80s and 90s and maybe over 100 years. They're still getting a retirement check. As small as it may be, they're still getting it. I want to make sure that all the people out here that are retired, and me, Chairman Green, that we continue to receive our retirement. Because if we don't do something now, it's become more of a burden on the state, and and pretty soon it's going to get to the point to where it's not sustainable. Okay.
All right. The governor's floor leader, Representative LaRicchia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just wanted to apologize, Chairman Benton. This is 2 meetings in a row that I've either missed or been late, so we had a meeting with the governor, but
Okay, well, I'll take your name off the list.
I apologize. But, and I've looked through, one of the things that they require us to do, particularly in the leader's office, is to really look closely at these bills. And when we had looked at this issue a few years ago, you answered one of the questions was it would be for new hires, not current teachers or retirees. So you answered that question, but I know over the last couple of budgets, we have appropriated quite a bit of money to help and to support TRS. And you probably have mentioned that in all of these meetings, but I missed it. And so just for my clarification, to make a note, because I don't think people believe me when I share that number with them, and just wondered if you'd tell me that again.
Well, this is the employer share of what needs to go in, and this is the number that the auditors determine what needs to go in. But in the last 3 years, the amount of money that's gone into teacher retirement has been $1.4 billion. So, but that is the employer contribution that the state pays. Now the locals pay for local hires. In other words, they want to offer a class in basket weaving, and the state doesn't accredit that, then they pay that teacher. They have to pay that employer share. Excuse me.
Does that take care of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Chairman Martin.
Chairman Benton, I think I'm right in saying this to Representative Wilkinson's point about what do you tell the new teachers? Over the last 10 years, statistically speaking, 73% of the people that come into teaching in Georgia leave before they reach the 10-year vesting. So 73% of the people that have come into the profession in the last 10 years, that's what's measurable, have left. Only 27% vest after 10 years. I've got some empirical data that shows that. And I think that's what the Chairman Benton was talking about. The longevity of the 60 versus the 38 years may not be the decision-making
Right.
factor. Is that not true, what he was
That's
saying
right.
there? And I think, again, I want to get these, get with Chairman Benton on the details, but I think he's right. And we want, first and foremost, I have said, because I've worked on this for a while, and I just asked Chairman Benton if he agrees. First and foremost, we're going to honor, you and I believe members of this committee, are going to honor our commitments to our current teachers and our current retirees.
That's exactly
Isn't that
right.
true? So the emails I've gotten have been from educators, professional people in the business, that worry that if we change something, that there won't be people going in and paying into the TRS system. I sit here today and tell you I'm several semesters shy of a law degree, but I am informed that if a person never paid in another nickel into TRS, it does not relieve the state of our obligation to those retirees, those people in the system, so let as they say sometimes when somebody on TV, not your heart be troubled on that. If the gentleman is moving people around, the state has that commitment. And we wish to do it. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll get with him later on that, but I just wanted to agree with the chairman that we do have a commitment and that we need to honor to our current teachers and our current retirees.
Okay, thank you. Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know the hiring process right now, but my assumption is that seniors are being told to expect a certain benefit. And even if only 27% stay, I would think a larger number would go into the profession thinking that they may stay. And the one thing that I think that we don't want to do, and I think we're trying to do that by putting the July 1st, 2019, is not to pull away something that we've promised to people. And so even if we delayed it a year, I think that might be beneficial. I don't know if we can do that, but that might help with the current people that are graduating. Because like I said, I know conversations are going on about what to expect. So even if it's 27%, that's still a fourth of our teachers that are going to go into the classroom unhappy about what happened to them.
No,
So
I don't know that they would go into the classroom unhappy. I think they go into the classroom. I think they're all full of vim and vitality when they first go into the classroom. It's after having to put up with unruly kids and paperwork and all the other stuff that they become kind of jaded. And a lot of times they don't make it to 10 years. I was very fortunate. When I started teaching in 74, teaching was fun because you didn't have to worry about doing all this testing mess that we have to do now. And it was, we took one test a year. That was the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, and that was it. But we've become so number oriented, and we think that we ought to be able to turn out a product, the same product year after year. Well, we're not making widgets. We've got kids that are totally different every year, and you might get a class that's knocks the top off the test scores one year, and the next year you're struggling to get them up to barely grade level, and so it takes its toll on them. It really does.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I see no more questions from the committee on that. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask you to hand me that sheet. So. Thank you. All right, we have 5 people signed up to speak. We will give you each 5 minutes. Doesn't mean you have to take it, but we will give you 5 minutes. I want you to have your say. But if your say is gonna be just criticism of the bill with nothing concrete to add to the bill, or if if you get up to speak and someone else has already said the same thing you're gonna say, then just say, they said the same thing I was gonna say. The first speaker today is Margaret Ciccarelli from Page. Margaret, we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying something different today. Got my testimony on a laptop so bear with me. I want to thank y'all for the opportunity to address you all. I represent Page, the Professional Association of Georgia Educators. We're about 95,000 educators across the state, mainly classroom teachers, but parapros, administrators, bus drivers, and hundreds of kids in teacher preparation programs, both at the high school level, in CTAE pathways, and also in teacher preparation programs in college. So a lot of teachers of the future who are interested in this legislation. Business is professional learning for Georgia educators. We are strictly Georgia-based organization, and the bulk of our efforts and our member dues are spent doing professional learning here in Georgia and teacher recruitment effort. One of our main priorities for 2019 is teacher recruitment. We're particularly focused on growing our own teachers to meet the needs of rural schools and high poverty schools throughout the state. And so, needless to say, I should mention that we were very pleased with Governor Kemp's $3,000 pay raise for Georgia educators. That proposal is well needed, and it raises the starting teacher pay in Georgia from about $34,000 to about $37,000. So that's really important and will go a long way to recruiting more teachers. I mentioned this within the context of House Bill 109 to talk a little bit more about teacher recruitment. And I also want to stop to thank the chairman for his thoughtful conversation with us 2 weeks ago. We share his goal of maintaining TRS as a defined benefit program. This is a good faith effort at that. And we had a good faith conversation with him and appreciate all the work that he has put into this. And we are working with him on this legislation. As we discussed when we met with him, we do think it's important to obtain a cost estimate. That has already been referenced during committee discussion, but we need to know how much we think we might save if we implement the various proposals in this plan. That is important for us to be able to justify why we are changing benefits for incoming teachers. Not only that, but also so that we can maybe thwart any future efforts to change this program fundamentally in ways that educators wouldn't like. We need to have an idea of what we're saving, so those numbers are important. And as to the provisions of the bill themselves, we're particularly concerned about raising the mandatory employee contribution rate from the cap now at 6% to a cap of 10%. And that's why I referenced the salary increase that the governor has announced and the starting salary for Georgia educators. Now, just because we raise the guardrails from 6% employee contribution rate to 10% doesn't mean that the TRS board would necessarily increase the employee contribution rate to the max under this bill of 10%. But if they did, let's say they were to do so, which they would legally allowed to do if the bill passed in its current form, it would completely undo the $3,000 raise. So I think it's important for us to consider bringing that 10% number down, something a little less scary, to maybe 7% or 8%. And really, maybe there's no reason to lift the floor of 5%. We could let the floor stay where it is and raise the ceiling a percentage point or two. I think there would be less consternation and less potential negative impact on recruitment if we were also to talk about when the remaining $2,000 of the $5,000 pay raise may be delivered. We can think about a schedule over the next couple of years about how to accomplish the employee contribution rate and the pay raise at the same time. On the other end of the salary schedule, I think it's important to think about veteran teachers in the future under this bill. Currently, the salary schedule ends at about year 20. That means we'd be asking teachers to work until age 60 when they max out after 20 years on the salary schedule. We should consider adding steps to make sure that teachers aren't stagnating on the salary schedule when we're asking them to work longer, as life expectancies have grown longer as well. Basically, we have some concerns about this bill, but I do want to reiterate that we want to work with all of you, with the gubernatorial administration and with the chairman on this. TRS is a treasure. Our TRS system here is well run. It is well funded compared to retirement systems in other parts of the country. It has it particularly shines when it comes to the administration costs of the program, which are 0.0%, 0.06%, compared to a national average of the cost of administering a pension plan, which is 0.44%. So TRS is knocking it out of the park with our in-house cost to administer this program. It also has a very deep economic impact. TRS worked on an economic impact study that I'm sure they will share with you, and if they don't, we'll be happy to do so as well. We've created some maps that show that. But this program is meaningful for teacher recruitment, retention, and we look forward to working with you on this bill to make some changes to keep TRS around and strong for new teachers, current teachers, and those who are already retired.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Does anyone in the committee have a question for Ms. Ciccarelli? Oh.
What number are you there?
Thank you for your comments, but can you just kind of go back and elaborate a little bit more on what you said about the change in the raise that the governor is offering currently right now?
So right now, the starting teacher salary on the state teacher salary schedule is about $34,000. That's the state-based pay. Governor Kemp's proposed raise, which we certainly hope y'all will pass, just going to plug that, would add $3,000 on the state salary schedule for all teachers, including those who are beginning teachers. And one of his stated goals, and it's one we strongly share, is to increase teacher recruitment, and that will go a long way to doing so. If we were to max out under this bill, the 10% mandatory employee contribution at 10%, it would actually undo the raise, which is about 9%. That $3,000 equates to about 9% for incoming teachers on the state salary schedule. So that's a worst case scenario that's unlikely, but it's legally possible if this change were made.
All right.
Hey, thank you for coming. I appreciate the conversations we've had, well, not you and I necessarily, but with the organization over the years. I think when talking about the 3% and the 37,000, I think it's important to sound, over this group, and you probably know, but I think many of the teachers aren't necessarily aware of that $37,000 teacher. Let me pull my phone up here to look. The amount of money that the state put in, not that they put on their own last year on that 37, it was $8,140 would have been put into TRS on their behalf in this past fiscal year. So I think that's when we're talking about how much we're paying teachers today, for a different discussion perhaps, but I wonder, and people are going to roll, I'm looking at them, they're going to roll my eyes when I say this, with so many young teachers leaving the profession before 10 years, and leaving and taking none of that. If you work in the Georgia system at $37,000 and you get your step raises, at least $8,000 will be put in by the state over a 9-year period if you don't vest in that. $72,000 plus some sort of return on that investment. We use a 7.5% discount rate at the state, which doubles your money every 10 years. So you're leaving on the table if you leave as a Georgia educator, a Georgia professional educator at 9 years because your spouse was in the military or your spouse got transferred somewhere. You're probably leaving $120,000, $130,000 on the ground. I wonder why there's so much pushback about letting young teachers come in the profession and choose a defined contribution plan. Not just offer one, not an offer only, but why would you prohibit young teachers from coming in and having the option of a defined contribution plan, remembering it's the state's obligation to make good on pensions to current teachers and current retired teachers that are in the TRS plan. That's what I wonder, because I know young teachers up in North Fulton County who have left the profession and left with only the money they put in, and they left between $80 to $90 to $120,000. It just went away because we forced them in a defined benefit plan. So if not today, another day, I would like to know why we're so, that's such a snake out there for people to not give our education, because I think that would be a recruitment method for
Thank
them.
you, Chairman Martin. We appreciate that input. We look forward to having a very spirited discussion about that idea outside the context of this bill.
I'd like to chip in on that a little bit. There's nothing that stops a teacher from putting in as much as they want to into a alternate plan. So, and I would encourage anybody that starts teaching to do exactly that when they're able to. Representative LaRicchia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, and you and I have talked a couple of times, and I really don't have a question. I just wanted to ask you to do me or us a favor, maybe over the next several months or weeks that we'll be having this conversation. I guess 3 things I would ask you to do for me, and it's all of which are just reminders. Remind the educators across this state how much we appreciate everything that they do on and off the clock, in and out of the classroom, and that this is very complicated work that we do. To say that Chairman Benton has courage is beyond what the other 235 legislators up here could probably say. It's tough work. Remind them about the percentage of the $26 to $27 billion that the taxpayers invest into this state go to public education. And last, I guess, and as important, is that we're not just looking at the retirees and current teachers. We are looking for little girls like mine that's 11 years old, and her aunt was in public education for 33 years. And she has spoiled my daughter, but she wants to be a teacher today. And old daddy will probably be gone when she retires. But we've got to keep this strong. We've got to keep this sustainable so that 50, however many years from now, if she decides to retire, that it may be just something that we've all worked together to try to help accomplish. And so those are simple little things, but this is tough work. And we're looking down the road 100 years. And so, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Philip Sisk.
Thank you. I'm a retired school teacher. I taught for 32 years. I started in '72, and my first salary was $6,000, and had a lot more money then than probably toward the end of my career when I was making a lot more money. And George is in good position, certainly in the southeast, with our salaries and stuff like that. That doesn't mean it's good enough. I don't know how we get teachers to go into teaching today. After I retired, I went back 3 years and taught, but because I was retired and didn't have to have the job, I didn't have to, my principal couldn't make me do all that paperwork, all the keys and all that stuff. I did enough that satisfied her. And it's all great. Hey, listen, teacher keys is all fantastic, but you don't have time to do it all and teach too, and have any other life at all. But anyway, I regress there. I'm sorry. I would like to know the $1.4 billion that was mentioned earlier, where does that come from?
State Treasury.
How does it get in there? I mean, is it just tax money that is, I thought you said something about employer contributions.
The state is the employer.
Oh, okay, okay. I just, I really am interested in the physical condition of TRS, because in the past, there have been attempts to change TRS when the state retirement system was suffering so bad after so many of the involuntary separations that happened in the 80s and the 90s, and there was no money in the state retirement system. They wanted to combine that with teacher retirement system because we were flush. So I am very wary of any changes that are made to the teacher retirement system, but I also want it to be, want to be able to say it is flush. I don't want, yes, I benefited from people before me, but I want teachers after me to benefit from what I do. I worked on when we used to have 30 steps, and we reduced it to 20 for the good of all teachers, because they were making after the 20th year what it would have taken them to the 30th year to make. And so that was a benefit the teachers got reducing it. And we don't see it after 20 years when we don't get it. We don't think about it like that. So I want teachers to have it better than me when they retire if possible. And I think the teacher retirement system, I also draw a little bit of Social Security. So the teacher retirement system is much more valuable than Social Security, because Social Security has been rated so much by politicians, I'll say. And we appreciate what y'all do, because we know your job is tough. I have no problem with limiting the 200,000. Certainly, you know, I won't ever reach that, so I don't have any problem with that. And those folks can suffer. But I think a teacher should be able to retire after 30 years, regardless of their age. My wife started teaching. She went through college in 3 years. She started teaching at 20 and she did teach 34 years, so she retired at 54. I see no reason for her to have to wait 6 more years to draw her retirement. I don't think there's a real physical benefit to the teachers that do retire with their 30 years before that. And I appreciate, the gentleman left. I appreciated him saying that he believed you had a responsibility, teachers, but he won't be here in 10 years probably. Do the next people that get elected, will they feel the same way? You know, well, and that's why we're here now. Let me see. You know, that's always great till somebody new gets elected and they feel different about it. And I wanted to also respond to the 73% of teachers that don't make it 10 years that have paid all that money into, they walk away from it. Yes, they do. But had they put it in a teacher in their own retirement account, or they could do whatever they wanted to with it, it's doubtful that with the salaries that most teachers make, they would have much of that money left at the end of the 10 years when they walked away. So it's not like they're going to take that money and put it in a 401k. Most teachers live from paycheck to paycheck. And so that money that they would, sure, we all try to save, you know, till our car breaks down and then we have to do something different. I appreciate your time. I hope that I want to keep TRS in good physical condition as well. My main one, and I have 2 daughter-in-laws and a son who are also in education. Okay. So my heart goes out to them every day because I see what is happening in education.
Mr. Sis, we've got
Thanks
somebody
very much.
that'd like to ask you a question if you're willing to take it.
It's more of a statement.
Okay.
As I sit here and listen and, you know, literally heart goes out to the situation, but something was said that kind of clicked here. We definitely want this to go on, and you mentioned Social Security. You mentioned something about rating of Social Security. Social Security is broken because it's a failed insurance policy.
Well, it's broken.
But just,
let me just say that it's broken because the money that comes into the government from Social Security that is not,
okay,
as they always used to say, put in a lockbox for Social Security.
Okay, let me finish.
Go ahead.
It's broken because it's an insurance policy that the premiums won't pay the claims. There's $2 trillion in there. It draws 4% interest every year. Social Security, I'm not saying this, I just want everybody to understand. Social Security is going broke the same second it would have gone broke if it was in the bank. It's drawing, if you can show me where it wouldn't. So as we decide to do this, we want to prevent the same problem that Social Security has. But Social Security's got $2 trillion right now, and has gained a little money, and it draws 3.5%, 4.5% interest every year. So if it had been in the bank drawing that much, it's got the same gain as it has if it's on a balance sheet.
Well, as I understand, our money in TRS is invested, much of it in the stock
That's
market.
fine.
And so as the stock market goes up, it.
Well,
it
I understand.
increases.
My preference would be not to let the same thing happen to TRS
Oh,
that has happened to Social Security.
thank you, I agree with that too. And if you can show me where TRS is suffering financially, I fully would support it.
Okay.
The reason nobody's willing to fix Social Security, and it can be fixed, so.
All right.
To
Thank-
help.
All right, thank you.
And this can be fixed also.
Thank you, Mr. Sis.
Thank you.
The next person is Jane Howe.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? My name is Jane Howe. I am a retired teacher, and I also represent Tragic. We have 25,000 members. John Palmer is unable to be here. He's our lead, and he's not well, so he has asked me to speak on behalf of Tragic. I just lost my email here. The first thing we would like to do is to thank you for working to protect TRS and the defined benefit program for future educators. Our group believes that TRS is one of the strongest tools that we have for teacher retention and for recruitment of quality teachers. There are some concerns that we have about the bill. It changes the benefits calculation formula from the average of two highest years of salary to the average of 5 years, and does not allow more than 2 raises in that time period. The average of 5 years does not seem to be too troubling. It would prevent someone from jumping into a job for 2 to 3 years just to collect the higher pension. We do have an issue with the no more than 2 raises in that period. Consider someone who gains a higher degree in hopes of an administrative position, or gets that administration position and either moves up the salary chart or gets a higher administration period, all within 5 years. How would that salary be calculated? It increases the mandatory TRS employee contributions to a range of 6 to 10%, up from existing statutory requirements of 5 to 6%. And while we'd certainly appreciate Governor Kemp's recommendation for a $3,000 increase for teachers, without that increase, Georgia is 46th in the nation in teacher salary. I don't know what the percentage would be with a $3,000 increase. This proposal is the most troubling. The range now is 5 to 6%. It has never been lowered from 6%. If the range is 6 to 10%, you can bet that teachers will be paying 10%. It would also create a 2-tiered system of teachers. Those on the old plan would be paying 6%, while those on the new would be paying 10%. Would it be more fair to raise everyone's contribution rates by 1/4 to 1/4%? What would TRS need to have an equitable contribution rate that protected future benefits? It eliminates the use of any unused sick leave towards retirement credit. And while we can understand the reasoning behind this change, we fear that this will harm local districts, especially in the rural areas. Counties are already facing substitute shortages. This plan might save the state a tiny fraction of money on one hand, but cost districts a significant amount on the other. It ends the right to retire in advance of the start of the school year if you achieve 30 years of service by December 31 of that school year. This proposal, This proposal doesn't seem to affect a significant amount of retirees to make any difference in the solvency of TRS, but it could have a dramatic impact on a teacher affected by the policy. It prevents retirees from drawing any benefits until age 60, even if the retiree has completed 30 years. The proposal basically tells any young person entering the teacher profession that they will need to teach 35 to 38 years before being able to draw retirement. With a salary schedule that ends raises around year 25, this proposal could be extremely detrimental to retention of quality teachers, as someone who could work for over 10 years without a salary increase before they could draw pension benefits. My fear is that districts would have ineffective teachers continuing in the profession long after 30 years, simply because they can't afford to retire, while quality older teachers might be unable to afford to stay in the profession due to a lack of salary step raise for over a decade. I do understand that these proposed changes would only affect new hires, and all current TRS members would be grandfathered in under the old plan. I'm just not sure that these proposed changes will accomplish their stated goal of protecting TRS in the future. Has there been a study of the effectiveness of these proposals? In looking at recent shortfalls with TRS, one of the primary reasons was the lower number of teachers compared to pre-recession. It would stand to reason that an effort to hire more teachers in lower class sizes would also shore up TRS and prevent the shortfalls we have over the past 2 or 3 years. I think it would certainly be worthwhile to examine this possibility. Now I'm going to speak independently as a retired teacher, just for a moment. Okay. We have a teacher retention problem in this state. We have a serious teacher retention problem in this state. We have recently seen a lot of money diverted from public schools over to charter schools. I have a niece who's very outstanding, who's planning to go into education. I would recommend that she not do that, just because of all of the troubles within education and because she's so capable of many other choices. But this is what she wants. Back in the 70s, when I started teaching, there weren't a lot of options for women who make up the primary teaching group. You could teach, you could be a nurse, you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, but there were few who did that. There are many, many more options now who are attracting the best and the brightest to other fields, and frankly, education is not competitive. Without the TRS benefits that we have now, we are going in the wrong way. We should be doing everything we can to make the teaching profession better and more desirable. We should not be chipping away at benefits. We should not be chipping away at retirement benefits or insurance benefits or classroom sizes. We need to go completely in the opposite direction. Thank you.
You have a question, if you would care to answer it.
I'll try to.
Just quickly, the niece that you would not suggest go into, is that because of the retirement?
That's part of it. There are many other reasons. Salary is one of those reasons, and just because she's just incredibly outstanding and capable of doing whatever she wanted to do.
Yes, ma'am. But it's not strictly just on retirement.
That is a big part of it.
It's a big part of it.
But you know as well as I do, you don't get into teaching for the money.
Well, no,
I
but
mean, you expect to be paid a decent salary.
well,
but
when I went into teaching, retirement was a big promise for me, and the benefits were just absolutely incredibly wonderful, and those are not the case now. The benefits, insurance benefits, are not what they used to be.
Well, you can thank the Affordable Care Act for that.
Well, no, it happened long before that. It happened long before that. I'm not here to have a political discussion about who did what when,
Okay.
but it happened a long time ago.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Benton, committee members. I'm Gretchen Walton, and I'm the Compliance and Legislative Affairs Officer for Cobb County School District. In our district, we say that if you are not a teacher, your sole job is to support teachers. The state and national conversation around student success is very complex, but for Cobb, we've narrowed it down to a really simple equation. We put high quality, hardworking teachers in front of our students, and we give them the time and the resources to do their jobs. We focus every question around students and educators. Since we truly believe that educators are the most important element in achieving success, we believe they must be appropriately compensated. In Georgia, teacher salaries are 72% less than the salaries of folks in the private sector with similar education, so we rely on benefits to strengthen our compensation position. About 1 in 10 teaching positions in Cobb come open every year. HB 109 will make it more difficult to recruit, hire, and retain teachers by compounding our compensation problem. While Governor Kemp is boldly requesting $3,000 raises specifically to recruit, hire, and retain teachers, this bill makes teaching in Georgia less attractive by proposing to increase the length of time that new members contribute to TRS before they receive a benefit, increasing the amount that new members contribute to TRS yearly, allowing the TRS board to annually determine the TRS contribution of new members up to 10%, decreasing the retirement benefit for new members by lowering the salary in the benefit calculation, eliminating the sick leave benefit that incentivizes educators to avoid absences, and forcing some employees to teach until the age of 60, meaning districts would need to add new, higher salaried steps to the salary schedule. While each of these proposed changes would impact new educators, solving today's budgetary issues with money from tomorrow's education isn't a solution. It's a problem. With this bill, we are telling the educators of tomorrow, you have to work longer, you have to fund more of your retirement. Your retirement benefits will be lower, but you're the most important part of our state's future. There seems to be a prevalent idea that the state keeps having to bail out the teacher retirement system, but they're actually the employer in this equation. The employer needs to draw people to our profession, a very noble profession, one that I'm very proud to be part of. Please help us hire, recruit, and retain teachers. It's already difficult enough. Thank you.
Rosalind McIntyre.
Good afternoon, and yes, my name is Rosalind McIntyre, and I'm coming before you as a retired teacher. I do want to thank you, Chairman Benton, and your committee for really thinking about this. I mean, I know it takes courage to talk about changing this retirement system with the teachers because of all the pushback that you probably have been getting, as you noted the comments that you got. I do want to say, Chairman Benton, in addition to thanking you, you started out by saying that your mental capacity was not our business. It is our business. I beg to differ because you are representing this constituency and the citizens, and you're making laws for us. So we do want you to be very competent in what you're doing. And we appreciate that.
They don't have the right to call me that.
I understand that, but you said it wasn't our business, and it is our business. However, I want clarification on something. You said that this would be a bill for teachers who are coming after hiring after July 1st, 2019. Does that mean that if a teacher is vested in the system, the TRS system, before 2019, July 1, 2019, however, suppose the teacher goes out on maternity leave or sick leave 2 years after this takes place, but they started before July 1st, 2019, and they were out for like 3 or 4 years, but they come back. What is their start date? The beginning or when they came back?
I think I'll answer that, and if I'm wrong, Buster can correct me back there. If they don't withdraw their money out, they're still a member of the retirement system.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to change. The other thing is it says to eliminate the right for teachers to retire in advance of the start of the school year before December 31st. Now, does that eliminate the retirement of mid-year of December 31st? Because you said in advance of the school year.
It would eliminate them retiring in midstream of the year.
Okay. All right. But again, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, because I know that something has to be done in order to continue that we have this. The other thing that I'd like to thank you for is to say that we are continuing with the defined benefit with TRS, because we have so many young people who are coming into this profession, and they don't know how to allocate their money in ways, whether it's stock or bonds or whatever. They don't know anything about that. Their focus is not on that. And again, this is a way of helping them to move forward and keep them in this profession to some degree. And I do appreciate that as a defined benefit system. Thank you.
One thing about teaching, it will teach you how to budget your money, and it'll teach you how to save. Do I have any other comments from the members of the committee?
Just that I have family in the teaching profession, and the teachers are somebody that I think of every year, every day, about something they taught me in school. Maybe not from the classroom, but something they told me about life and things they said to me, just a simple thing they said to me in the hall or after school that literally changed my life. And I really appreciate you, teachers, and it's a tough thing to try to decide what we do, the right thing for teachers. And that's what it's all about. Is what's right for you, and retaining those teachers. It's not a punishment in any way. And I want the chairman to and he will listen to all of you, and any ideas I want to know about them, and he will relay those to us. But I appreciate teachers. Just not knowing how to fix it is the problem. And I'm pretty decent with math. As I've got up 68, 69 years old, it's slipping a little bit. I shouldn't say that publicly, but we do appreciate you guys and gals, and it's a tough call on how to fix this.
I have been taking notes as to what people have suggested that we do. I will be getting with Legislative Council and several other people, and we'll see what we can come up with. We will meet again next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. We will have other bills on the agenda, but we will be we will be bringing up 109 again to let you know what we have decided or what we are looking at doing. I appreciate everybody coming today. I know it's really rainy outside. Everybody be careful riding home, and we will see you next Tuesday.